want you to think about something for a second. You probably know exactly what you want to build. You might even know how to build it. You've done the research, you've consumed the content, you've thought through the idea more times than you can count, and yet you haven't started. Not for real. And if I had to guess, it's not because you don't want it bad enough. It's because every time you get close, something that sounds completely reasonable shows up and talks you out of it. So you tell yourself, maybe later.
Maybe after I learn a little more. Maybe after work slows down. Maybe after the kids get a little older. Maybe after I feel more confident, more ready, and more sure it's going to work out.
And the thing is, maybe later sounds responsible. It sounds like good judgment. But for a lot of women, maybe later has turned into never. And they don't even realize it's happening until another year has gone by and the thing they said they wanted is sitting in exactly the same place it was 12 months ago. If you've been thinking about building another stream of income, starting a coaching business, monetizing your skills, or just creating more options for yourself, but you still haven't started, this video is for you. Because I want to talk about the reason so many capable women stay stuck at the starting line. And I promise you, it's probably not the reason you think. So stay with me because by the end of this video, I'm going to share the shift that finally helped me understand why action feels so hard, even when the opportunity is sitting right in front of you. Here's a belief a lot of women hold on to without ever examining it. And that is the belief that information creates action. Like if you just learn enough, you'll eventually feel ready to move. So you watch another video, buy another course, listen to another podcast episode on your way to work, save more posts, take more notes, fill in more journals with ideas and plans and strategies. And inherently, none of that is bad because we all know learning matters, preparation matters, but there is a point where learning becomes something else. There's a point where it becomes a very sophisticated and socially acceptable way of hiding. And that's where things get really interesting. Because here's what I've observed. Many women who say they need more information already have enough information to start. They know enough and they've known enough for months. So the issue isn't knowledge. The issue is what starting would force them to confront. Because when you start, you create visibility. Starting creates uncertainty. Starting creates the real live possibility of failure, but it also creates the possibility of success. And believe it or not, both of those things can feel scary. Failure and success. Because once you start, everything becomes tangible. Your dream becomes a reality. The risk it takes to make a move becomes real. The responsibility becomes evident. And that emotional weight can keep a woman frozen in time far longer than any lack of information ever could. That's why I want to offer a different perspective on what's happening here. The reason you haven't started yet may have very little to do with strategy and everything to do with identity. Most women I talk to don't struggle with capability because they're already incredibly capable. What they struggle with is permission. Permission to want more. Permission to earn more. Permission to build something that's theirs. Permission to take up space in a room or an industry or an online space they haven't occupied before. And that's a very different problem than not knowing enough strategy. Think about how often you've seen another woman doing something you wanted to do. Maybe she's building a business, launching an offer, or putting herself out there, and your immediate reaction was,
Clock it. Good for her. She's amazing. I wish I could do that.
and there's genuine admiration there, but there's also distance because you put her somewhere all the way over there in a category of people who can do that kind of thing, and you keep yourself somewhere else. But the moment the spotlight turns toward your own potential, everything changes. Suddenly, every reason not to start appears. Every obstacle shows up. Every doubt enters your mind. You come up with every way it might not work, and what started as possibility quickly collapses into hesitation. Listen, that's not a strategy problem. That's a permission problem, and it's worth calling that thing exactly what it is. Here's what I really want you to understand, because this is the part that changes things. The women who build businesses, create multiple streams of income, launch offers, and start coaching are not the women who have no fear. They're not fearless. They're simply the women who stopped requiring certainty before they were willing to move. And what I just said is a really important distinction, because certainty isn't something you get before you take action. Certainty is something that develops because of action. Most women are waiting waiting to feel confident before they start. But the reality is, confidence is waiting for you to make the first move. Here's how it works. You take a step, you learn something from it, you get a little evidence that you can do this, and the evidence builds into confidence. Then you take another step. See, confidence shows up after you take action. It has always worked that way, and no amount of preparation is going to change that order of operations. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, here's what I want you to hear. Ready isn't a feeling. Ready is a decision. It's the decision that what you want matters enough to move even when you're not sure. It's the decision that imperfect action is better than perfect preparation. It's the decision that future opportunities are worth the discomfort of today. And when you make that decision, not when you feel it, when you decide it, things start to change for you. If any of this is resonating with you, I want you to drop the word income down in the comments. I have a free training that walks you through what it looks like to build a skills-based income stream. I'll teach you what people get wrong when they try to start and why structure matters so much more than credentials or audience size. Drop the word income below and I'll get you the details. Now I want to talk about something that I don't think gets enough attention because I think it explains a lot about why accomplished women particularly get stuck here. Many women aren't struggling to start because they lack ambition. They're struggling because they've spent their entire lives becoming excellent inside of systems that are built to reward certainty. Think about what most professional environments value: expertise, experience, predictability, established processes, proven answers. You get rewarded for knowing things. You get recognized for being reliable. The system is built around the idea that you do it right. And doing it right means following a path that's been laid out before you. Building something of your own rewards something very different. It rewards initiative when you're not sure it'll work. It rewards experimentation that might fail. It rewards making decisions without all the information and adapting as you go. And for someone who has built an entire identity around competence and being the person who knows what she's doing, that temporary loss of certainty can almost feel unbearable. See, you're not struggling because you're less capable than other people who've started. You're struggling because you're operating in a completely different environment with a completely different set of rules, and your brain hasn't caught up yet. And this is why so many high-achieving women make this very dangerous mistake. They measure themselves against people who are 10 steps ahead of where they are. They find someone whose work they admire and they're looking at that person's chapter 20 and comparing it to their own chapter 1. You see the audience, you see the confidence, the smooth sales process, the polished content, you see the results that look effortless, and you forget that every single one of those things was built over time with a lot of uncertainty along the way. Every single expert was unknown at some point. Every coach had a first client who was a little scary to take on. Every content creator had a first post that probably felt vulnerable and weird to put out. Every business owner had a first sale that felt almost surprising when it happened. Nobody skips that phase. But social media has made people's beginnings almost invisible. What we get to see are outcomes. We rarely see the uncertainty, the doubt, the messy first attempts that existed before the outcomes arrive. And when you can't see the uncertainty, it's easy to assume that Lottie-Dottie and everybody had it figured out from the start. They didn't. They just started before they were ready. And that brings me to something else I really want you to think about, because it connects directly to why you're still waiting. Waiting has a cost. We spend a lot of energy thinking about the risks of starting.
What if it doesn't work? What if people judge me? What if I invest time and it goes nowhere?
But very few people spend any real time thinking about the risks of waiting. Like, what if another year passes and nothing changes? What if the thing you keep putting off is the thing that would have changed everything for you, your family, your future, and your legacy? Those questions deserve just as much weight as the fears about starting, because every decision you make, including the decision to wait, is creating your future. And here's the part that makes the waiting even more costly than women realize. The stability we assumed was built into employment is not as solid as we thought. Jobs change, companies restructure, roles that existed 5 months ago disappear. And honestly, a lot of us have experienced this firsthand. So So when you're waiting to feel ready before you build something of your own, you're essentially betting that your one source of income will stay intact long enough for you to get comfortable. And that's a risk too. It just doesn't feel like one because it's familiar to you. Listen, I'm not bringing this up to add pressure. I'm bringing it up because most of the women who haven't started aren't waiting on confidence. They're waiting on permission to take what they already know seriously. And the skills you've been using every single day in your job, in your industry, in every problem you've helped someone navigate, those are already the raw material for another stream of income. Here's the thing about all this. The reason you haven't started isn't because you're incapable. It isn't because you're too late. It isn't because someone else is more qualified or more deserving of the thing you say you want. Most of the time, the reason you haven't started is that you've been waiting for a feeling that was never going to arrive before you move. And that moment has a way of never quite coming when you're standing still. The women who change their lives aren't always the most talented women in the room. They're often just the women who were willing to take one step before they could see the whole staircase. And sometimes the biggest difference between the woman who changes her future and the woman who stays stuck is simply that one of them finally decided to start. If you're ready to stop waiting and figure out what your skills are worth, my micro course 2K in 2 hours is the place to start. You can learn more by visiting my website at herincomeedit.com/2K or just click the link down in the description. And if you're new here, my name is Nick Scott and I help women turn their existing skills into coaching income, digital products, and online businesses. If this conversation resonated with you at all, watch this video next. Because a lot of women I talk to don't have an effort problem. They have a strategy problem. And this video will help you figure out which one you're dealing with. Okay? I'll see you there.